All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 360 Sports Show, broadcasting to you live across Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. I'm your host, Andrew Pizzelli, here on, what is today? October 4th. Welcome to the show. We have got tons to talk about. Lots happening in the NFL. Could their season be on the ropes? It is on the ropes, honestly. Could they be heading towards having to shut down the season? Meanwhile, the NBA is nearing its conclusion. The NHL already concluded. Baseball's in their postseason. But I think we're going to start today with the NFL. But before we do that, I want to bring in my co-host and good friend, Christian Lauber. Christian, how are you doing here this morning? We need to know first. Do you have the count on the days left in 2020?
I will shortly. Yes, 89. 89. We're under the 90 mark now. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that we're
it's huge.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We just have to realize that it'll be monumental to get to 2021, but
if we get there,
hopefully maybe things magically will change by then. Maybe, we don't know. But anyway, let's start. I think the lead story this week has to be the COVID-19 outbreak in the NFL. It's just, it started with Monday. We got reports that the Tennessee Titans had some guys test positive, and then they had played the Vikings, so both of those teams kind of get sequestered, go home, don't come to your facilities. The Vikings have since not had anybody test positive. They're going to play today. The Titans, meanwhile, now are up to 18 guys. I don't see an end in sight for them. They have not returned to their facility. Their game now next week is in jeopardy, and we'll talk about the ramifications of the scheduling and the cascading effect of that. But then the news yesterday that the New England Patriots and Cam Newton had somebody test positive. Yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs have someone test positive late in a week. Their game right now is tentatively tomorrow. I think it's bad news bears for the NFL, and I know I have this rant that I need to get out, and it's sort of the problem we always have with the NFL, and it's I think we see now that maybe at this level you need a bubble. The only way it's going to work is with the bubble. And from all the reporting we saw at the time and have since seen, that there really wasn't too much consideration for it. Like, yes, would it have taken a lot of work? Is it even probable? NFL is different than hockey and basketball. It takes, there's so much more players and support staff and all that sort of considerations. But right now, I feel like there's too many people now that it's starting to affect, too many teams, and not having a bubble. There's almost the players, the trainers, coaches, staff, family. It can hop a ride on any of them without a bubble. They're going home. They may be going to the market. A spouse of theirs is going to the market and coming. Once it gets in, it honestly is going to be really hard for them to control. And now you've got three, and teams have had guys test positive on practice squads, and they've able to sequester them and stuff. But once it really starts affecting the games, it starts to become troubling. Trying to have this starts though with the NFL's problem. They wanted to have a full schedule. They didn't want to have an abbreviated season. They wanted to do what they normally. They wanted to have fans in the stands. Yeah. The NFL, it's a shame on them. They had since February. The season ended in February for them. They were not going to be impacted by any of this. Hypothetically, they had all spring, all summer to come up with the best available plan, and they went with, let's just do what we do. Maybe you looked at saying, hey, let's play 10 games. Let's play every other week. You play your division, some teams in your conference, and maybe a non-conference opponent, and allow for more testing and isolation of cases when necessary. And it would also make rescheduling easier because football, which you can't play more than once a week, reasonably. I know they play Thursday night games, which already has its own problems. But if you spread it out every other week, if you need to bump somebody back or bump somebody forward, there's already that open slot there. Maybe you look at regional bubbles, 18 pods playing in a bubble, and then you take 4 of those teams and you rotate out, and you allow 2 weeks to acclimate and test in the other bubble. And they didn't want to really get too far. Even the PA didn't want to talk that much about it. And I just think it's a complete failure of the NFL since they had the greatest amount of time to prepare. Their season ended in February. They should have had the best plan possible. Cases were going to happen. It was unavoidable. Instead, the NFL has done what it always does. It ignores the issue. It ignores the concussion problem until it's too late. It ignores the domestic violence issues until it's literally screaming them in the face. And this time, they wishfully thought they could have a full season without a bubble. It isn't possible. It's not the NBA. It's not Major League Baseball where you can cram in makeup games. In trying to avoid losses for a shortened or abbreviated season, the league may have just jeopardized its entire season, which is par for the course for them, but it's still a travesty considering they had every advantage to find a way to make this work, and they really didn't apply anything aside from testing and trying to install some protocols. They're trying to just have a season like it's any other year, and it's just utterly ridiculous. All right, rant over.
And I mean, look, they really have no plan to add games in, right? I mean, you can finagle it like they did. This team's going to go to week 7 and have a bye right now. But at the end of the day, there's no real plan there if cases were to pop up and teams were to get sick. So you can add on to the end of the season, but this is all conversation and we're 4 weeks into the season. So this should have been planned out way beforehand. I mean, that's just point blank. And they messed up in that respect. And now they're kind of on the edge here of failure. I mean, I mean, you can define failure however you want. If that's the season's canceled, that's failure. Or is it that we're going to finagle all these teams into different weeks and then there's some advantage problems, competitive advantage issues and things like that. So I don't know. Right now, it doesn't look great. And it was good of them to say, okay, we're going to get in the playoffs, Super Bowl. Everything's going to be in a bubble once you get there. Okay. The problem is you have 16, 18 weeks to get there, right? So I don't know. It's just it's not looking good at the moment for them. So they have to actually come up with a plan, and it should have been done, way back when, right? They had all this time to figure this out. This is why they had the opt out though too, because these players, they knew families were going to be involved, things like that. So they gave the players the opportunity, and now here we are. I mean, if kids are going to school, that's an easy way to catch it. I mean, just in all these states across the country, we know cases are going to pop up. It's how you manage it. And that's the same for, the NFL. And obviously right now it is not looking too bright for them.
Yeah. It's just, now they're talking about making a plan. And like you said, the rescheduling thing, they got lucky that what they could do is they say, all right, the Titans don't play the Steelers this week. Steelers get a bye week. Titans, I guess, technically get their bye week too. And then they could swap a Ravens and Steelers game, and then the Titans play the Steelers later, and then the Ravens and Steelers play a week later because the bye week things work. The Patriots and Chiefs can't play today. If they can't play this week, the option is they have to then start, it starts affecting, okay, now they can move the Patriots-Jets game, and then the Patriots play the Chiefs. They get their bye week here, and then you start slot. Well, then, all it's going to take is just one more team to affect that, and now you don't have that sort of flexibility. They just should have had something in place right along, a protocol that said, all right, somebody tests positive on a Saturday, that game, done.
Yeah.
Lump it on at the end. We're going to play until everybody's played their 16 games, and then we'll do playoffs. Or you just say, guess what? You guys can't play on a Sunday. We'll wait till Monday or Tuesday, and at that point, if it can't be played, sorry guys, forfeit. The team and it sucks. That sucks, but it's just so impossible to start the finagling of the schedule. And especially if more of this happens, you start to not be able to shuffle games because the NFL wanted to be so strict about how they wanted to have their season and playoffs and stay on schedule.
Yeah, I saw one thing though. I saw an interesting get from someone, I forget who it was. on Twitter that the Chiefs and Jets play like week 13, I think, and the Patriots Jets play week 12. The Jets should forfeit those two games, and then the Patriots and Kansas City should play in one of those 2 weeks because the Jets are so bad. So I'm on board with it. Honestly, I'm all for it. Jets
So
misery is great.
as of right now, the game is on for the Patriots and Chiefs tomorrow, and this is from
Yeah.
Adam Schefter. Monday night doubleheader: Patriots Chiefs at 7:05, Falcons Packers at 8:50. And then he follows us up with the Chiefs Pats set for Monday night. Not only will KC now have to play 3 games in 10 days, but Buffalo could be coming off a Week 5 bye. If the Titans can't play next Sunday, Buffalo would be at home with extra time to prepare for the Chiefs. It's the COVID season.
This is what I'm saying, though. This is the competitive advantage standpoint where this is going to be an absolute mess. And to me, if there are teams getting significant advantage, that to me is a fail. Straight up, I just don't see it any other way. I think you failed as the NFL if these teams are getting a huge advantage over someone else. Like 3 games in 10, and Buffalo coming off a bye. That seems a little bit ridiculous. I mean, it is what it is because this year is, unprecedented. But at the same time, it's like you couldn't have come up with anything else here. There's no other plan in place. They had, in the first 3 weeks with no cases, they had a good plan, right? Go ahead. But that's the season, right? That's a normal season. This isn't a normal year, and they treat it as such. So, the opt-outs were great. That was a good option for players if they wanted to take it. But for the guys that want to play and make their money, I don't know. It's tough because now you're just creating an issue of competitive advantage, and on top of all these COVID cases, and where are you going to slot games? And it just becomes an absolute what it is right now, which is just a cluster.
And on top of that, what did we say? I don't know if I said it on the show. I know I've said it to a bunch of people asking me, how long do you think this season's going to last? And I said, well, we're going to know after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because after 3 weeks is going to be that point where, okay, the teams have basically just been with themselves for a preseason. You play week 1, you play week 2. Kind of after week 2 is when maybe you'll start to see guys crop up with cases because of that, maybe that potential 2-week long incubation period. And then by week 3 is when you kind of might have that reckoning. And this all really started after last week. This could have just been pretty. It's, the people who we went and played a game and, Monday morning, hey, we all tested negative. Great, see, it worked. It's like, that's not the way this works. That's not, evidently, too, the NFL doesn't test Sunday morning. They tested the Patriots players today because they had to. But they don't want to rely. Here's the thing, right? They don't want to know. The PCR testing takes longer to come back. And so it's not worth it to do it Sunday morning because you're not going to have the results in time before the game. The rapid test could come back in 15 minutes. But obviously the accuracy is not as great. They don't want to have 20 guys test positive and then come out to be false positives. And then they have to cancel games because of that. They'd rather just not know and go let guys play potentially with it. And there's just that because you're testing Saturday night and not again until Monday, we know now you could be infected, you could be contagious because you're asymptomatic, and you could test negative for multiple days in a row after exposure until you test positive.
Yeah.
So there could be guys playing in games that are positive. And now, luckily, I'd say it's almost a miracle that nobody on the Vikings has tested positive because there had to be guys who were positive on the field for the Titans. And so I guess in a way, that one example is a good sign that on the field, maybe it doesn't spread as easily as we thought, but that's one example. And maybe that's just luck that's happened that way. And who knows? There could be cases. Guys could crop up Monday morning from the Vikings with cases. It could take up to 14 days. So, honestly, I feel like the Vikings shouldn't even be playing today because you just don't know. But, hey, that's not what the NFL wants to do. What do you think, Christian, about, bubbles? Could an NFL bubble? I've liked the idea of the regional bubble, which is what the NBA might look to do. Same with the NHL when they resume their seasons. Having the pod thing and having regional bubbles. Do you think that works? Could it be done?
Yes, but it would take some serious planning. I don't think they can do it now. I think it's too late, honestly. I mean, they could just try to scramble and get something together, but I think it could work. I mean, look, there's ways to do it. We've seen it, right? The NHL and the NBA both say, okay, so you get in this bubble, you're tested almost every day, and at some point, families come in, and presumably everything was great for the NHL. There was no problems there, and same with the NBA so far. And we're in game, it's pretty much over. So there's a way to make it work, and there's a blueprint. Now, people don't follow this blueprint for unnamed reasons, but there's a way to do it. I don't know if the NFL can do it now at this point.
Yeah, I don't think they can do it now, but
Yeah,
could it have been a consideration? I mean, it seems like I read report they didn't even want to consider it,
yeah,
which is like
it's odd.
why?
Yeah, that's weird to me because I mean, when you look, especially when you have evidence, as the NFL, like they were the last one to go, right? So you have evidence that the MLB clearly was shaky early on, and really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, I don't think the MLB put on this great product, right? There were so many COVID tests. A bunch of teams played 7-inning games. Then you have half the teams playing 9-inning games. So it's just you saw that if you're the NFL, okay, 2 bubbles, check mark. The MLB, not so much. And then you just decide to go ahead with it anyway. So you implement travel, you implement all these things as if nothing's going on. And then, look, there's an element of bad luck in this thing. If you don't have proper ventilation, there's a way to catch it. Things like that. So if you walk into a supermarket and catch it, bring it back to your family, then it spreads from there. Other guys on the team, it'll spread rapidly. So it's just, I think it could work. And I think that's something that obviously you mentioned as well. The NBA will look into doing for their regular season, but it will take some serious planning and more time than the NFL were to give it. And the fact that they didn't even consider it is, I feel like that's not a great sign. I don't know.
Yeah, like you said, it would take time and thought and planning.
Yeah.
Something the
They don't
NFL
wanna
has
do it.
shown an unwillingness to do. Um, yeah, so that's kind of that. We usually do picks. I think maybe we're too hot on the NFL right now. So maybe
Yeah.
we'll come back and we'll do picks later. But again, the news right now: Patriots Chiefs moved to tomorrow night for now, and the Titans not playing this weekend. Already, their game with more. They have up to 18 cases now today. Their game is going to be potentially in trouble next week versus the Buffalo Bills. I'm just seeing if there's anything new from Adam Schefter before we move away, and if there is, we'll certainly come back. Just a reminder: this is the 360 Sports Show. We're live every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. And if you can't catch the show live, there's archive versions of the show on all those platforms. You can also subscribe to the show as a podcast. Just search for the 360 Sports Show on your favorite podcasting app. And you can reach us anytime in the comment section when we're live or by email at the360sportshow@gmail.com. We always love your questions, comments, concerns, general rantings and ravings. Those usually help drive a lot of the fun content on the show. We're going to switch now to the NBA. The finals, games 1 and 2 are already in the books, Christian. And I'm sure we have some things to break down from those games. Game 3 is tonight. And my prediction for that game is that it's over. Game 4 over. If we really wanted to only spend 1 second on the finals, it's that it's over. The Lakers are going to win because there's nothing the Heat can do to combat the size of Anthony Davis. The Lakers are too big. Unless the Heat magically grow 6 inches overnight, the series is over. They have no shot. The only shot they have of winning a game is if they shoot an insane clip from 3. They just bombs away and it all goes in. Because right now, LeBron James might be trying to cement more of his GOAT status, but the MVP of this series is Anthony Davis, and he's making a case for being the best player in the world right now. Unfortunately, for all of us, Celtic fan here, and we'll talk about the Celtics in a little bit, but this series is over. The Lakers are winning their 17th championship in 2 days, 2 more games. It's over. There's no shot. It's over.
Yeah, it's done. The Lakers make the Heat look like a 5 seed in the East, and that's what they are. So I don't know. The Lakers are just too good. Like you mentioned, they're too strong. Like if you were drafting this series, it's obviously a 1 and 1A LeBron Davis. So they have the two best players in the series without a doubt, and then maybe third is Jimmy Butler. But again, to me at least, Jimmy Butler is very good, not great, and he's an all-star but not a superstar. He is a good, solid number 2 on a good team. So, if Anthony Davis were to swap teams in this series, I would probably take the Heat, and that's not the case, obviously. So Davis is a stud. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, he plays, a 4 or 5 spot like a guard, and he's insane. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can do just about everything, and he's showing it off this series. And then on top of that, you have the best player in the world for the last 16 years on your team. So it's just those two are going off. And Davis, there is literally no answer to Anthony Davis. Even when Bam was in there, he was completely outmatched. And that guy's an all-star. He's a good player, but he's not Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is he's a notch above just about everybody in this series except for LeBron.
Yeah. I said coming into this season, before COVID even happened, I said for Anthony Davis to, if he wins the championship, for it to be, a valid ring for him, he had to be the man.
You gotta play well, yeah.
He couldn't just be a passenger on a team that LeBron, he couldn't just be Chris Bosh and hang out in the corner and just want to shoot threes and bring the ball up and just kind of like, ho-hum, I'm along for the ride with LeBron. AD in this postseason has brought it.
Yeah.
He's shown me that alpha thing with him. He's shown me the fire and willingness to exploit mismatches. There's very few times I've thought, God, this guy is just settling, and he's just he's not taking advantage of the fact that he could be the best player in the world. He's shown you that in the playoffs, and especially in the first 2 games of the series. I kind of think it's no coincidence that he's playing his best when he's with Rajon Rondo again, because Rondo is the guy who got that out of him when he was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And Rondo is a big part of the success for the Lakers because it's that trickle down. LeBron doesn't have to handle the ball and make plays for everyone, every single possession. Rondo gets guys great looks, great spots. He's brought his defense here in the postseason, and he gets all these guys great looks, including Anthony Davis, and he gets him the ball. Right, he's got a guy who's got he's got an advantage in the block. Rondo gets him the ball because Rondo, even though he has the ball almost every possession when he's out there, he's not like, oh, I got the ball. I'm gonna do it myself. He's not a Westbrook or a Harden. He's actively trying.
Player, yeah.
He's actively trying to get the ball to the person that's going to have the best chance of them scoring. And a lot of the times it's Anthony Davis. And Davis has just been an absolute beast. He should be MVP. If he's not MVP of this series, and it's like LeBron, that's a complete joke. That's just how they're just trying to throw hardware at LeBron.
That's like Tom Brady winning over James White in the Super Bowl against the Falcons.
I don't necessarily.
We're gonna go with it. Yeah, move on.
No, come on. It's dude. James White was a beast in that game.
There's a reason he got the truck, right?
But who's the guy who was getting him the ball?
James White.
James White was throwing himself the football?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, I think you might
watch it.
Go check your prescription there, Christian. Kind of to break down how both of these games went for the Heat and the Lakers. Game 1, the Lakers just shot the lights out early on, which is, again, they've been shooting great from 3 in this series, which was the thing we said, that hasn't been their strong suit. But the last 2 rounds, they've been lighting it up. And if the Lakers role players are hitting the threes like they have been, it's game over. I mean, and the Heat got banged up. They lose Dragic. They lose Adebayo. And game 1 just kind of slipped away. Game 2, I think everybody knew like same deal. Only way they win is if they shoot the lights out. Uh, the frustrating thing is watching guys like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, just become normal people again after they were
I
like,
know.
Avengers superheroes versus the Celtics.
Yeah.
But when you're shooters, that's what happens. You get hot and you get cold. And I think the matchup too is just difficult for them. The one thing I'll say, and this is, I hope the Celtics are taking notes of this series, right?
Yeah.
The way the Lakers attack that zone defense, right? And not just attack it, but exploit it. Exploiting the zone. A zone means there's holes on the floor for you to get to. And I'm watching the Lakers just torch that zone. And yes, it helps to have Anthony Davis, right? A guy like that you can have roaming around on the baseline, or in the middle of the floor. But they're getting plenty of good looks by just quickly moving the ball in and out of the zone and around the floor to get guys open. And you go back and watch some of the Celtics games against them, and they just look completely sluggish. And I think we'll get into the full Celtics postmortem here in a minute, about maybe kind of why it was just a perfect storm, a bad matchup for them. But I hope other teams are taking notes. The Lakers are showing you how to exploit a zone and get a team out of the zone. And the Heat are just staying with it because they have to. They can't go man to man because they'll get torched by LeBron and Davis. So yeah, just a mismatch. Series over.
Yeah, Celtics would have matched up better in the series. I think that's pretty clear, honestly. But they also choked away that series against the Heat, so it is what it is. But yeah, it's done. It's either 4. If Miami really wants one, they might get one. But I don't think Dragic is going to be playing the rest of the series, and he's kind of a sneaky key guy for them. So he kind of holds it all together, and without him, I don't think they sneak out a win here at all. So I think it's 4.
I'll look and see what the update is for him, but
I would doubt it.
I would
highly doubt it.
You tear your plantar fascia. That's I don't know. This is hopefully in either next weekend, we want to talk again to Dr. Mark Murphy, who predicted the COVID thing actually overshadowed the injury problem in the NFL. And we're trying to get Dr. Mark Murphy back on the show to talk about that. And honestly, it isn't going to matter the longer it goes because there's only going to be more injuries.
Yeah.
But he would be able to tell us, pretty emphatically. I think if you tear your plantar fascia, not only is it just about pain, I think there's probably about physical limitations of playing with that too. It wouldn't just be like, oh, it just hurts, so numb it up. Hopefully, you don't have the Chargers team doctor do that. But I can't see him coming back. And even with him though, nah.
Yeah, like I said, the only option, the only thing that could happen for the Heat is they somehow sneak out one win. I don't think this is going more than 5, and I think it's probably going to be ending in 4. So that will be tonight, and then whenever the final game is, probably Tuesday, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So. But the bubble worked, right? So that's a good thing.
That is the positive. Hey, and we'll talk about the NHL quickly at the end too. They crown a champion. The NBA is going to crown a champion. Huge successes for both of those leagues. I don't think anybody tested positive inside either bubble. Correct? They had some guys go into quarantine protocol, but that was only because it was guys went to the strip club. those sorts of situations. But other than that, 100% success. There was a couple of instances of rescheduling games because the NBA paused because of some of the stuff that was happening in the world, which is just fair. NHL had to reschedule games because they didn't expect one team to go 5 overtimes. But other than that, everything was a success. We kind of talked about the Celtics there, and I want to kind of give their post-mortem, so to speak. Their problem is it comes back to kind of something we talked about with them all along, which was not having a bench. And I think, could they have still beaten the Heat without that bench and got to the finals? Yes. What happens though is that gets met not having an actual bench unit that you can throw out there and that could hold a lead, or having guys that could, hey, get hot. The bench came in to just manage the games, and you always had starters sprinkled in there with them, and not having a true bench unit or having a bench scorer um, hurts when you have Gordon Hayward go down, when you have Kemba Walker, limited at times, or maybe not at 100%. Because the only way this team was going to win games was if you had four guys basically almost average 25 points. You needed the combination. You needed Hayward, Kemba, Jalen, and Jason to basically all average 20 to 25 points a game efficiently. And that's reasonable to expect from those guys' skill sets. But if one guy's kind of having an off night, if one guy's down, who's going to pick him up? Now, sometimes it was Marcus Smart. He offensively, average-wise, played way above what we expect of him, normally, out of necessity, because they had nobody else. So I know, you want to make fun of me because, Danny Ainge said, not having Romeo Langford hurt. Was Romeo Langford going to be the guy that saved the season? No, but maybe he's a guy that sporadically gives one of those other guys a blow. He comes in and goes 3 for 3, in a certain game, or 5 for 5. Has a moment that he's a legitimate guy who could probably score and alleviate some of the pressures on that starters, because those guys looked tired.
Yeah.
You talked about wanting to. Brad Stevens, it was infuriating. Drive, 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 drive. And it's like it was happening for the Celtics in slow motion. And I think because those guys wore down, you needed so much out of your starting unit. And I think they just wore down. And that's why you saw late in games. And, a little bit of his experience. I think experience played into games 1 and 2. But I think, these guys know how to play. They know how to close games. We've seen them do it. I think it's more about just when you're physically exhausted, it's harder to, mistakes are going to happen more often. And I think the thin bench, those guys' health, it was just a perfect storm of not being able to execute against that zone defense. It made it hard on them. And really, too, what happened is they choked, flat out choked games 1 and 2. And when you do that, when you should win those games, and you had those games in the bag to win, and you're down 0-2, you basically make it so that you have to win 6 games in that series, essentially. Yep. It's not like you played poorly and lost games 1 and 2, and it's like, well, hey, we still haven't played our best. You kind of almost played your best, and then you just let those games slip away. And you only have so many of those winning. And then the flip side of that is the Heat didn't even play their best, and you let them take those games. So then you're going to get one of their best shots, which you got in Game 4 and in Game 6. So you just make it harder on yourself when you choke games away like that. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate what happened to them, because would it be a much more entertaining final series with them? Yeah. Entertaining, close, competitive, compelling, all of the above. They did it to themselves a little bit, but I think it almost in a way against that Heat team right now with the Celtics roster, given you had to get through the entire playoffs to get to them. I think if they had that team earlier, they would have been able to just run right through them. Getting them at the end was just a bad matchup, and the Celtics could have overcome it. It's unfortunate they didn't, but they brought it on themselves. It was more to do with what the Celtics did and didn't do versus what the Heat are, and that's unfortunate. I think it was just too many things added up in the wrong side of the column for the Celtics.
Yeah, I think they had a failure of a season. If you want to know the truth, I think this is the best opportunity you would have had to get to a final and maybe even compete for one. I don't know. It's just it kind of sucks. Ever since that Game 3 against Toronto, it just went sideways completely. After that Anunoby 3 from the corner, and after that, it was tough to win every game. They couldn't close out any game. They barely squeaked by in Game 7 against Toronto. And then here come the Heat, and the same thing happens all over again. Close down the stretch, the Heat get within maybe 5 points, and then you just start chucking up threes, and it goes the other way, and you're down 12 in a minute. So it's just one of those things. And I know there's a lot of people calling for Marcus Smart to be traded and everything like that. I'm not going to go that far, but I also think he doesn't help them when he just keeps chucking and ducking. So he's good on the defensive end pretty much at all times. But man, he gets into this thing where he just keeps shooting. I would rather go down with the ship with Tatum and Brown shooting 45 times and Smart shooting 25. So uh, I agree partly there, and then obviously Hayward is the other question mark. Do you trade him? He's probably going to opt in. I mean, just for the money, but do
Oh,
you
he's definitely
trade
going to opt
him?
in.
You trade him for something
No way.
and try to trade something because I mean this team has some serious issues. They need a veteran in there. Obviously, Kemba I think had some health issues as well. But to me, Romeo Langford, Semi Ojeleye, those guys are not the answer. That's not going to get it done.
Well,
And you have you have like an all star team in Maine for some reason. I don't know what that's going to get you. And you also have like 45 draft picks. So it's about time you start doing something instead of just grabbing all these guys to do nothing off the bench. It just seems pointless to me.
so there's a couple of things. Do I think the season's a failure? I think in the context of the bubble and what we were expecting coming in, you can say that the playoffs were a failure given everything we knew, knowing, hey, you didn't have to play the Bucks and you're able to beat Toronto and you're playing the Miami Heat in
Yeah.
the conference finals. You could say maybe that's a fit. The season as a whole though, coming in, they exceeded our expectations of where this team could get to. Coming in. We thought they were going to be worse. People said, hey, you hate on Kyrie,
No.
but without him, are you going to be much better than where you were last year? Could you
Yes.
get beyond Game 5 or Game 6 against Milwaukee in the second round? I'm saying legitimately that was kind of the consensus. It's going to be a fun team. It's going to be likable. They're going to be lovable. But realistically, how much further do they really go? Given their roster.
But their roster was just as good a year. I mean, and you have another year on these guys like Hayward. Hayward is going to be healthy. He has another year in the system. Brown and Tatum, and then you get the poison out. Obviously, that wasn't. I mean, I think we can say in I'm not going to defend Kyrie, but he wasn't the only problem on that team. I think that's clear. So you get him out and you improve, kind of the team dynamic and everything, which is good. And that helped. And I thought they were going to, go above and beyond what they did a year ago because of how toxic that whole locker room was with guys like Marcus Morris and all these guys. He had too many mouths to feed. Hayward was coming off an injury, and people were annoyed that he was in the lineup. So it was just a mess that year. And you got Kyrie out and replace him with Kemba, he's not. I mean, he doesn't do the same things Kyrie does, and he's not as good as Kyrie on the floor. But he's less of an a-hole, which helps.
But what were your expectations as far as what coming into the season? Where did you think this team, when we knew what the roster was going to be, where did you think this team was going to get to? An Eastern Conference Finals? Would you have taken a game?
I think that was in the realm of possibility, depending on the seeding.
Yeah, so they got to what was probably their feeling, right? So hear me out. When did that change? That changed when Jason Tatum started dropping 45 points, triple doubles, averaging 33 points in the month of February. That's when it changed. We said, all right, this guy's going to do this, and all these other pieces are playing. Hayward's giving you 20 points and 7, 8 assists and rebounds a game, and just filling in all the cracks all over the floor. Marcus Smart was basically having to just play defense and take 10 shots a game, which was the ideal coming off the bench for him.
Yeah.
You were getting contributions from the Time Lord. Tice was giving you something. Jalen had his best year, I think, as a pro. Kemba was rolling. And so, they beat the Clippers in that double overtime game in Boston late in February or early March. And that was when we said, you know what? If Tatum is ascending, we picked Jason Tatum to be a top 5 player coming into the bubble. I don't think he was. And I think were his numbers, really good? Yes. He played like an all-star in the playoffs, averaging close to 25 points a game. His rebounding, assist numbers, his defense, he was doing things from a number standpoint that very few players have ever done in the history of the league, if ever. But you watch the games and you were just waiting for that. He drops 50. I needed that. You needed that from him to get to a finals. The championship aspirations came because you thought Jason Tatum was going to be a dude.
I disagree with that.
Who was better, Jason Tatum or Jamal Murray?
They didn't play each other.
I'm just saying, like
Jamal Murray was not good against the Lakers.
I think in two of the games that they had. I'm just saying, I was waiting for Tatum to have one of those superstar moments. He played like an all-star. He played like an all NBA level player. But he never had that 40-point game, triple-double.
You think you need that against the Heat, though? Like, if it was Milwaukee, 100%. Tatum has to be a stud.
Yes, with that roster.
No, I don't think so.
You think you could have just gotten through a playoffs and maybe won a championship without him having one of those?
You think Toronto is worse or better than the Heat?
Honestly, right. I think Toronto's better.
Yeah. And Tatum didn't have to pop off at all in that series. He had some really good games, right? But against the Heat, if you're asking him to go get 50 against, kind of like, if you're in the bubble, I don't know if the Heat are even in that situation, and neither are the Celtics, maybe. But the point being is, if it was Milwaukee in your way and Giannis is going
I'm saying when
40,
Tyler Hero has the highest scoring game in the series, you needed Jason. You needed Jason Tatum. There was going to be a game where you needed Jason Tatum to answer the bell, right? And he never did for a whole game. Game 4, right? He had that incredible second half. He dropped like 26 points after being like, what, 0-7, 0-10 in the first half? He had a great second half. He never had that superstar game for a whole game. It came out in a quarter or a half. I'm saying him doing that, what he was doing in February, was what made you think, okay, this guy's going to drop 30-something points every night? Great. That's going to put us over the top. He never did that. I
don't think you need that against the Heat team. I think you need to play. If it was clear in some of those games that if the Celtics played like they normally do in Celtic basketball, as it's described, they run the Heat over. I just think that's clear as day. I don't think the Heat are this amazing team that has all these shooters. Like, they get hot, they're streaky, right? But their best player is Jimmy Butler, who, in my opinion, is not number one on a team.
Yeah, but Christian, we have the benefit of knowing how those games went now, and the Heat did shoot really well in that series.
Sure.
So
yeah,
you needed somebody to elevate.
I mean, if you look at the touches, Marcus Smart, we can say what we want. Like, he needs to be on the floor. He's a great player. But he takes shots away sometimes that shouldn't be shot from either Jalen or Jason.
But at the end of the day, there was in that Game 6, which Game 6 was where he took the most shots in the series, which that frustrated me a bit. But there was like 6 minutes to go. The Celtics were, I think, up like 4 or 5 points at the time. I said, all right, I don't want Marcus shooting the ball more than twice the rest of this game. I think he did because they were down like 15 with like a minute to go. So, but until that game got out of hand, it was Kemba and Jason and Tatum shooting down the stretch. So at that point, whatever Marcus Smart had done before then, they were in a position to win that game, and they didn't. And it wasn't because Marcus It wasn't because Marcus Smart took a whole bunch of terrible shots in the last 5 minutes of a game. It was like, what are you doing?
I think that's a team mentality, though, because every one of them decided to sit out behind the three-point arc.
100%.
Instead of going to the basket. So,
and I think it was they were worn down. I think they didn't have it in them to keep going to the hoop. There's subtle things. Like, I think Tatum needs to work. His dribble's too high. He gets his pocket picked way too often against that zone. And guys, when you're making decisions when you're slow, you telegraph. It needs to be a quick dribble, a pass across, boom, open shot. And that guy has to shoot with intention, not dribble, stop, pull up, look around, toss to you, then I back out. No, it has to happen. Has to be snappy. And I think those guys just looked beat. They just looked worn.
I think one of the keys was Hayward getting hurt. I don't think against Toronto, I don't think you need Hayward, because the other guys can get these mismatches and switches. Against the Heat team that can throw, they're like 8 deep maybe.
Yeah.
I think you miss Hayward in the fact that he's the one that goes into this zone and it kicks out from there, and then you make shots off of that. So people were saying, Hayward doesn't matter and you don't really need him. I think he's a big time player in that Heat series if he's healthy. Obviously, he wasn't healthy. I mean, I think that's clear. But he's a guy that gets into the zone and can help other guys out. Whereas if the other guys, Tatum for as good as he is, he's still 22. Like he's not. I think it's clear that they're not ready yet. But at the same time, it's like
the opportunity
they didn't have that guy to get into the paint. Create some problems for that zone and then kick and dish from there. Instead, it was okay. Pull up three. Pass around the arc, shoot a three, instead of trying to get to the basket and get something done inside. Whereas, obviously, the Lakers are completely dominating the game, and obviously, Anthony Davis is far and above any Celtic player right now, and hopefully they can get there. But that guy is so key, in everything that they're doing right now, and he's just dominating the entire series. So it's completely different.
I wanted to make a note on Gordon Hayward because you said some people calling for trading him. I think he's untradeable because I think the Celtics, even though the context of two things, people say, "Oh, his contract's not worth it." The minute I said this before, the minute he shattered his ankle in his first ever game as a Celtic, that contract was not going to be worth what you were going to get back. You knew you were going to at least lose a season and a half of production from him. And then it probably wouldn't even be until year 3 that he was somewhat back to normal. So forget the contract. What is he worth to the team? And like you said, all the things he brings to the table are so incredibly valuable for the way this team's constructed. Trading him, I think, just also he's untradeable because one, who wants that contract? And secondly, it would be a bad look for them. They took a lot of flack for what they did to Isaiah Thomas. I think unfairly. I think that's just business doing business. But I think they've been able to attract some free agents here in recent years. But there's also been some guys. Evidently, Anthony Davis didn't want to come here because of what happened on IT. Fair or not, that's the narrative. So trading a guy, some people said, "Oh, trade Kemba and get Victor Oladipo." What is that going to do? Guys who say they want to come here, they want to bleed green and do nothing but the right things, and then this is not 2K, right? So you're dealing with human beings. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to offer you the most money and you're going to come." That's not how it's going to happen, right?
Well, Oladipo doesn't solve any problem. He is another guy that's going to be shooting the ball 100 times. So it doesn't solve anything.
Total aside too, but I want to give Gordon Hayward credit. That dude, by all accounts, came back 3 weeks earlier than he should have and played. The dude, and I spoke to Dr. Mark Murphy and another friend who's a physical therapist. I said, "All right, 3rd degree, ankle sprain. What does that mean?" They're like, "That means you have torn ligaments." There's no, it takes a lot to come back from that on schedule normally. So he was ahead of schedule, and evidently we heard he played with numbness in his feet. He couldn't even feel his feet from nerve damage from what he did. That's incredible that he was able to give you anything. I know if I couldn't feel my feet and I was trying to play basketball, I would probably be falling all over the place.
I mean, I'm glad. He has some serious bad luck too. I mean, let's just say, how many guys step on another guy's ankle and they're like, I'm out for 2 games and I'm back, right? He does it and his ankle turns 8 times more than it should. So it's just he had some bad luck there. The only kind of second guess, I guess, is Stevens playing him too much because he was not good in that game, in some of those games against the Heat. And at some point, do you just take him out? I don't know. That's the only criticism I guess you could have. I mean, him playing, obviously, credit to him, no doubt. But
I think he was giving you a threat too, whether or not hey, Gordon might only be able to give me 5 points, and he was great in game 5. I think in game 6.
In game 6, yeah.
He wasn't nearly the same. But I think just him being out there, the Heat they don't know necessarily how bad he's going to be, right? You see Gordon Hayward standing in the corner, you're going to want to go defend him. It's like Gronk when he was hurt in the Super Bowl against the Giants. It's like the Patriots knew this guy's a complete decoy, but you have to line him out there and run him because it's still Gronk. Like, you're gonna want to defend the guy, and he's
Right.
gonna draw attention. And I just think the Celtics had nothing else left to go to at that point. You're gonna go down with your theoretically your
The best
best
players.
players. Um, as far as their needs, off-season needs,
Yeah.
I think they need a legitimate score. They could add to their bench. They need a legitimate scorer off the bench. Somebody who could come in and they can get their own shot, and they might be able to go like 5 for 5 and give you 10 points in a quarter, right? The Eddie Houses of the world, guys who
James
came in
Posey.
and just got hot. James Posey. Look at what the Clippers have with Lou Williams, a guy like now that those are high level guys, but that's the type of thing they need. Somebody who's going to come off the bench. Honestly, if you could have Marcus Morris without Marcus Morris's brain, a guy that's got that ability who's just not going to think that he's a starter, that's what they need. They also need
Picture perfect guy. If he takes it, he's going to make too much money. But JJ Redick to come off the bench on the Celtics, you need that guy that's just an absolute sniper. You can put him in a corner. You have Tatum and Brown out there. They're going to get doubled or something, and Redick's going to be wide open. He could just shoot. He can hit 5 in a row, and you're up 10.
Yeah,
something like that.
A scorer, and I think they need an athletic big. The progression of Robert Williams, I think is he's progressing.
Yeah.
But they
He's
need
not there,
they
though,
need
yeah.
an athletic big who they can give the ball to in the paint. I love Daniel Tice and what he brings to the table, but he's a perimeter guy, right? He's a pick and roll guy. Time Lord is a rim runner. You throw him, Lob Williams. You throw the ball to him. Cantor, I like what they have in a guy that they did it against the Heat. They could settle down the offense, dump it into the post, use a mismatch, go inside, a more efficient, slower game. But he's such a liability defensively. They need a guy that can be athletic on the defensive end and defend, and also a guy. It hurt not having Al Horford. You think Al Horford has second thoughts about he could have come back and been on this team. They had a way to make a re-sign and trade work, and they could have fit him on this team. You think the Celtics would have benefited from having a guy that when our shot's not falling and they're playing zone, hey, guess what? We're going to dump the ball into Al Horford, and he's going to go to that little baby hook or a little fadeaway jump shot, and he can play defense and rebound, and he's not going to demand the ball. They need something like that. People really like Grant Williams. I love him, but he doesn't have enough size to really dump the ball into the post in. He's an energy guy. He's more of a Glenn Davis type of production guy where he's going to really work hard to get what he can get. Those are their two biggest needs. They don't need to blow it up. I don't think we're gonna have Matt Murphy on the show at some point to do a full NBA retrospective in free agency and the salary caps and the draft and stuff. And he'll have all the machinations of who's available and what. But whether it's through the draft or whether it's through free agency or trading, they just need small things. Like if you put Aaron Baines and a shooter like Aaron Naismith out of the draft on this team, that might be good enough. That might be good enough to give you those little tweaks. The people who want to
draft picks not do anything.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if you identify a guy, if and Naismith's a guy that they'd have to move up for. You trade 14 and 30 and maybe something else, and maybe you throw a guy, a couple of your guys you've stashed away at somebody to move up to 6, right, or 7, and get a guy that's could be the next Buddy Hield, right? Like those are the types of moves I think you make where you say like we need a very specific need. Let's go get that specific guy, and a rookie contract helps because the salary cap is tight. I think it's small moves, not big moves. I feel like you have to agree there, right?
Yeah, I mean it depends. Like if the price is right for like a Miles Turner, I don't know how big you have to go on that. In terms of maybe like a draft pick in, you name it, Hayward, Smart, someone like that. I'm enticed by Miles Turner. But nothing huge. I'm not blowing it up and trading everybody but Jalen and Jason and then going forward and rebuilding or anything like that. However, I will say they need to stop holding on to all these guys. Like there's too many guys that didn't do anything and contribute. Maybe they will this year. I don't know. But the Carson Edwards, Romeo Langford, Trey Waters. There's too many guys in Maine that are just stashed there for what purpose? I have no idea. You can't have 45 guys on your roster, so Ainge needs to do something. What that is, I don't know, but you need to make some moves here because they clearly need help off the bench. Number one, and some type of big. I don't know who that is. Maybe it's a Baines type, or you go get a guy like Miles Turner, but they have clear needs, and they need to stop stashing these draft picks. Everybody's obsessed with these freaking 14th pick and 23rd pick, and it's just like it gets you nothing while these guys are going. So they need some help, and hopefully they actually make a move.
Yeah. Other news around the NBA, and we're going to have, as the NBA season concludes, their off season is going to happen remarkably fast. I mean, the draft is in November. Free agency will be shortly after that, and then they might be having a season starting, as early as the beginning of January. So it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround, and we're going to have plenty of episodes where we break down all these moves for all the teams with our salary cap and our free agency and / draft expert Matthew Murphy. But two other news, big news. Doc Rivers out in L.A. Mike D'Antoni also parted ways mutually with the Rockets. D'Antoni still looking for a job. Doc Rivers headed very quickly to the Philadelphia 76ers, which I think is interesting for them because their two options were D'Antoni or Rivers, and really, that's two totally different avenues you're going to take with your team. You sign D'Antoni, that roster is going to get completely blown up and sent every which way because it does not a Mike D'Antoni roster. Doc Rivers, a little bit more of maybe a retooling there, but even still, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, he's had point guards that can't shoot in the past. Rondo in his early Celtic days was not a scorer. Ben Simmons at least can score some because of his size. But they need to do something. They're not just going to roll back that roster and say, hey, Doc Rivers is the answer, right?
I hope not, because I like Doc. I think he's a bit overrated, I'll be honest. He's had a lot of talent over the years, and he hasn't won as much as he probably should have, or everyone thinks he should have. I'm not sure. I don't know how much this is gonna. At the end of the day, it's about the players in the NBA. I don't know how much this is gonna really do much. He's a good coach. You might get more out of him, and he's definitely a better coach than Brett Brown. But so am I. So I don't know how much that tells you. And I just think at the end of the day, it's about the players in this league. Point blank. It's about Embiid getting his head screwed on straight, getting in shape. It's about Simmons maybe, hopefully one day be able to shoot the ball. Tobias Harris is an interesting one because I believe he played for Doc in LA before he was traded, and he played pretty well. He was kind of the guy on that team. So that's intriguing, but Doc Rivers is not going to put this team over the top to an NBA championship like everybody might think. He had all those Celtics teams. He won one title. He had this Clippers team. He won nothing. He had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. He won nothing. I think he's a little bit overrated. And so how much of a difference it's going to make? It'll help for things where Brett Brown screwed up, which is just about everything. So they'll improve a little bit, but they have to make some changes on the actual roster in order for this to mean anything. I don't think Doc Rivers is he's not the LeBron of coaches. So
is he still a top 10 coach in the NBA?
Well, that's a loaded question because a lot of coaches suck. So
what does that even mean?
I would say probably, yeah. I would say top 10, top 15, yeah.
Let's play. We'll play a little game right here, and I'm sure we'll forget somebody glaring.
100%.
Let's name our top 10 coaches. Who do you think's the best coach in the NBA? We'll start there.
Yeah, probably Brett Brown. No, I'd say Popovich.
All right, so we got Pop. Okay, who's next?
Man, he might be in top 5. I don't know. I don't know.
Doesn't even need to be. We don't even necessarily worry about ranking them. Let's just name the really good coaches in our eyes. So we got Pop.
Spoelstra.
Okay, Pop.
He's up there.
Spo.
Stevens is up there.
Steven.
For all his gripes.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr is obviously up there. Yeah.
That's 4. Who else?
I mean, do you put Vogel up there? I don't know. I mean, it's LeBron and Davis, so I think he's an okay coach. So he was good in Indiana. I don't know if he's top
I'm
5.
going to put him off to the side if we can't think of anybody else who's yep, the Vogel's off to the side. Who else do we like as head coaches in the league? Mike D'Antoni's going to wind up somewhere, right?
He should, yeah. I would imagine so.
So
Somewhere.
I mean,
Who knows
I
where?
think he's a really good coach. People gripe about him, but what he does with teams, I mean, he improves teams. He does not go to a team and that team gets worse.
Yeah, he has players that aren't winners. That's the problem. I would say the guy in Quinn Snyder and
oh yeah,
he's a good coach. The Nuggets head coach, I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, Mike Malone.
Mike Malone, yeah. He's up there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm trying to think about Eastern Conference because the West has so many good coaches. Let's think the East.
Nurse. He's a tool, but he's a good coach.
So we've got Stevens, we've got Nurse. I'm trying to run down the East.
I would give Milwaukee, but at the end of the day, I feel like they
fail. He hasn't got that team hasn't gotten any better, and they haven't. They really haven't gotten any better. Do they have they had better regular seasons? Yeah, they've gone from being the 5 seed to the 1 seed a couple of years. But Mike Budenholzer, he's that guy. Yeah. He'll get a middling team to play really good, like he did with Atlanta, and then do nothing in the postseason. Regular season coach, no, he is not.
How about the heck is his name? Rick Carlisle.
Oh yes. So 1, 2, again, more coaches in the West. West coaches greater than East coaches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. So Carlisle. Oof.
Yeah, what other West team?
Doc is better than Vogel, so I'm putting Doc above Vogel on our little side list here. And I would definitely take all these coaches before Doc right now. So
yeah, I feel like I would too.
Let's say that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. Is there one more coach that you can think of? There's other good coaches. I don't know if I'd take Doc after any of them. Like Steve Clifford in Orlando, I think is a really good coach. I think that team is.
How about Monty Williams? I don't know if you take him ahead of Doc, but he's a solid kind of like middler coach, maybe.
I think those. We're talking about coaches now, like him and Clifford. They're really great for their market. They're going to get a team that could easily tank, play really hard, and be well. I'm trying to think. We're not missing anybody else glaring, right? Now I have to pull up the list in my head. No, all of these. All of these guys.
What about Nate McMillan? I mean, he's a guy that was pretty good, and then they canned him. But
yeah, I honestly, I think maybe Doc's 10. Maybe he does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6.
I think he cracks the top 10 probably.
He's 10. He's in the top 10, and if you want to argue, it's like about is he better than Mike Malone or?
I would say
Snyder,
he's in the 7 to 10 range, but he's not top 5.
Yeah.
But what does that say about the rest of the coaches in the league? Because I don't think he's won as much as he should. So, but he will help the Sixers team in some way.
What's amazing is for Doc, he left the Celtics because he didn't want to be part of a rebuild.
Yeah. And then he was a rebuild.
And then he hasn't made the conference finals at all with LA, and the Celtics have made it.
I know
3 times.
Insane, yeah.
And they only tanked for 1 year. They tanked 2013, and then they tanked the first part of 2014, and then they trade everybody, and then they get Isaiah Thomas, Jerebko, Crowder, and these guys, and then they make the playoffs. And then since there, they've just improved every single year, and have gone from like, okay, they're a playoff team to being contenders.
Would you rather have Stevens or Doc?
Stevens. You know, I think maybe I came into this year thinking, maybe is Doc better than Stevens because now I think Doc would have been better for last year's Celtics team, right? Maybe
Mhm.
he whips Kyrie.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
If you were gonna roll back that type of team, because you got to remember this is the other thing people get on the Celtics about too. Like, oh, they've been to the finals 3 times now, the conference finals, and they haven't made the finals. 2017, way different team.
yeah.
Jaylen Brown's a rookie. Isaiah Thomas and Crowder and Bradley and Horford, that was a veteran team.
Mhm.
They basically blew up that team and brought back a new team in 2018 and should not have made the conference
I
finals.
know. Yeah.
You were starting Terry Rozier and Marcus Morris along with Horford, a rookie Jason Tatum, and a
Yeah.
second-year Jaylen Brown. Like, that team way overachieved. 2019, again, a veteran team where you're now reinserting Kyrie and Hayward and all. And you saw what it was. It was a complete mess because that team just couldn't get out of its own way.
Yeah.
This year, honestly, again, you add Kemba, you lose Horford. It's a different team. It's going to be the first time, really, in the last 3-4 years that you're bringing back a cohesive team to like make that run again, right? Where
Yeah.
guys are pretty much in their same roles and everything. So if they don't make the conference finals next year or don't make the finals, then you can start to say disappointment, right? Because you were bringing back the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'll give Stevens some slack with not making the finals, is because it's been different teams
Stevens
this whole
gets
time.
no slack.
Yeah, well, you don't give anybody slack.
No slack.
You don't give anybody slack.
Hey,
Speaking of Kyrie,
let's get to this, shall we? Yeah.
This is great that we have video for this because I get to see like the veins in Christian's head just ready to.
I
explode.
honestly wasn't mad. I was laughing. I was like on the floor laughing at this.
So two things about him. Kyrie did a show with Kevin Durant, and they said how they don't have. First off, good luck, Steve Nash. He says they don't have or need a head coach.
Yeah.
That they have the guys on the floor that could be coaches.
One night KD's going to be head coach, or another night I'll be the head coach. That's not how it works. I don't think. Hey,
secondly, and this is more of just. It has to be trolling.
no,
Kyrie says he's excited to play with Kevin Durant and have him on the floor because that's another guy that he knows can make a big shot in the fourth quarter. Other than him,
yeah,
Kyrie
he doesn't
says
have to be the number one option.
He always felt he was the number one option. He didn't have that other guy to go to that could make a big shot in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Kevin Durant's that first guy. He's that mother effer, and to quote his own words, that can go get that shot. No, Kyrie didn't play with LeBron James, right?
No. It was all Kyrie those years. I remember.
Okay. Because I could have swore he played with LeBron James. Oh no! Wait, yes, he did play with LeBron James.
Hey,
Potentially the greatest player.
Yeah.
People argue about if he's the greatest player of all time. He's going to be the all-time leading scorer in the history of the league. The dude has hit clutch shots. He's won finals. And Kyrie must hate the dude so much that he has to say that he never played with a guy who could make a clutch shot or make a big shot, or that he trusted, or that could be a number one option down the stretch.
I thought he and Braun made up there. He's still cranking
He's
on.
salty because LeBron's going to get an easy, which we'll debate if it was easy or not, but he's going to get a ring here again. And so, LeBron values that Cleveland ring above all his others.
So I do,
and he has to give Kyrie credit for that because Kyrie helped him, and maybe Kyrie feels like he wouldn't have gotten that without me. But now he's going to get another one before you did, Kyrie, because you left to go prove that you could be the man. And you know what? Fail.
Yeah. So we might see another failure next year, but he has Durant this time, so probably not. But I see where he's coming from because he is the guy down the stretch, but also at the same time, it's hilarious that he just like keeps trashing on LeBron, and he's nowhere on the level as LeBron. His biggest downfall, maybe of his career, was hitting that shot against Golden State. I'm convinced of that now because he thinks that shot is I think he thinks it's the greatest of all time.
Oh,
He thinks he's the greatest player of all time.
he thinks he doesn't have to accomplish anything else. He's already accomplished everything.
Yeah, it's just a game at the end of the day. I don't know if you saw his like Instagram
I
after that. He was like,
did you? Well, I saw him talk about that. Did you see? I guess he went on.
I
He
didn't
went.
see the live. No,
I couldn't bring myself to ruin my evening by doing that. I guess I can pull up the. Let's just search for Kyrie.
I just think it was funny. Even before that, he's like, people just the media keeps disrespecting. It's just a game at the end of the day. Dude, you say all this bull crap, and then you can't go back on it after the fact that it's just the media spinning it. You said it.
Oh my goodness!
Stupid.
I think this dude's he's smoking something off screen here.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what he's saying.
I don't know. Find it though. Jeez, find me what he's smoking because he's on another level, honestly.
Oh my! I can't. He's just vibing on IG. He's just sitting here. He's like, "Yo, it's the finals. Come vibe with me." Oof. So I don't think there's anything much of. So I don't think he was there to answer the haters.
No,
Definitely,
hilarious though.
definitely not.
Oh, also the one other note, how he and Durant at the All Star game. That was the time he lied about that so hard too. I heard the clip this past week about how the media is just trying to make something out of this conversation between him and Durant in the hallway at the All Star game. It was nothing. This is bull crap that you're making this up, media. You're doing all, and then on this show, he admitted that they were talking about going to going to New York. So yeah, I can't give the guy any credence anymore. Oh my god, he's insufferable.
Do you think? See, here's what I thought was crazy. They fired Kenny Atkinson from the Nets. He was before the bubble. They fired that dude, and it was the Nets were that young, scrappy team that was like growing and exceeding expectations. They should have only added Kevin Durant, and that would have been enough, right? Honestly, to make them contenders.
Well,
They decide to add Kyrie too, right? And because I guess these dudes want to play together, but I feel like after a year, and then they get rid of, they end up blowing up their coaching staff again and wanting to add Steve Nash. I don't know how that's gonna go. I know he has some history with Kyrie. He almost played for the Cavs. He coached Kevin Durant and the Warriors. Like there's some history there. But how quickly the young guys on that team can play, and Kyrie thinks they all suck. So how long before that situation boils over where the young guys aren't necessarily saying hey, let us be the stars, but dudes, we can play, and probably Kevin Durant's going to want these guys to play and support them. And how quickly before that relationship erodes with Kyrie, I think personally they should just trade him to the Timberwolves now.
That's the point I was going to make. Do you remember? I don't know if people remember this. It was early on in the year, and he was barely playing any games, and he came out and was talking to the media and said something like, "We need another piece," and he got rid of half his active roster. I don't think people remember this. Yeah. He got rid of everyone on his team except for KD, and I wanted to be like, dude, you and Durant are the pieces, right? Do you know that? Do you understand that? So this year is going to be the year. We'll see what happens. But it's hilarious. Another guy that I would kick the tires on is Joe Harris, I think. If they're willing to give him up, he's a shooter that I would take. Yeah. Because I don't think Kyrie named him, so he's off the roster.
They have all these guys. Like Chris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. These guys are young and ascending. That's great. Add that to if you just guys all buy in, that's a young, talented, deep, versatile team. But
here's the thing: on the first day of training camp, right? Kyrie stands at the door, and guys walk up and they scan their card to get into the building. He's going to give them the go-ahead, or they're out. So they're asking Kyrie to come up with the roster this year.
That's going to be next year's NBA season is going to be insane because you're going to have so many more of these storylines. Yeah. This year was great because it was a year of parity. In the end, one of the most talented teams is going to win. The Lakers were predicted to win, and they're probably going to win. In all likelihood. But at least the season and the playoffs were compelling because you really didn't know, especially with the bubble, what you were going to get. Yeah. we're going to talk later, in the following weeks about all the machinations, but the Warriors could come back and ruin this all for everyone.
For the next 5 years. Yeah.
For the next 5 years.
Yep.
Like, potentially, it's not out of the realm of possibility
No, it's
that
not.
they have a lineup next year that is Steph, Clay, Giannis, and Embiid. That is factually possible.
Let's just end the show right now. I'm done.
If
that happens, yeah, I'm not watching the NBA. I'll boycott 100%.
It's possible. So we're gonna get later into all those moves, but it's possible.
I don't think other teams would trade all those guys to Golden State.
Well, the thing is, though, the Warriors have so much they could actually give up. They have Andrew Wiggins and his contract. They have the number 2 overall pick. They have serious. If they wanted to trade Draymond Green to somebody to get other capital that they then package away, this is where I said it's important for the Celtics as part of their rebuild is to be very active in the trade market to help facilitate, because there's going to be teams that need like 3-way deals, and so the Celtics were savvy. And LeBron was going back to Cleveland, right, in 2014. They needed a third team to help that. And even though in the short term it was going to be detrimental to them, they were able to help facilitate those trades by giving up big contracts that they had acquired to help facilitate the money. And they got picks back in return to help them rebuild. Yeah. The Celtics, again, hey, maybe you help them take a guy off their roster, and that's that bench guy you need as a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the creative ways you need to be involved. So plenty more to talk about with the NBA as they head into their offseason. We'd love to know what you think about what's going on with any of these things, the NFL and the NBA. You can email the show at any time, the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com. You can email us throughout the week, and we'll get to those thoughts and questions. You can always, we're live every Sunday here on Facebook, Twitter, through Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. And you can comment on the live stream. We did have one comment, which was from Colin, that he says, "I'm on a boat."
Nice.
So welcome aboard, Colin.
Solid contribution
to the show. Why can I not get rid of that now? Got to get back to showing what we were showing before. So you can comment on any of those streams. And if you can't catch the show live, you can listen to the show as a podcast. We put it out every Sunday afternoon after the show. Just look for the 360 Sports Show on your favorite podcasting app. We're going to move now away from the NBA and hit on the NHL. The Lightning win the Stanley Cup. They are the first team here in the restart in North American sports to claim a championship. And we said it before. We'll say it again. Just round of applause for the NHL. They pulled it off perfectly. Was it weird to watch? No fans, the whole thing. Were there some glitches with scheduling stuff? Sure. 0 positive cases.
Credit to the NHL players as well. They were away from their families. No families came into the bubble. Supposedly, the Edmonton bubble was not as up to snuff as they made it out to be. So the players had not as nice as the NBA, I heard. And credit to those guys, because look, the NHL player is wired very different, where they want to go play. So credit to those guys. They pulled it off with flying colors. Really, they had 2 places to play, and they absolutely nailed it. I mean, they started in Toronto, Edmonton for the finals. A couple teams had to swap, but no problems at all. And the accommodations were good enough, and those guys they hung in there. I mean, 90 days or something like that away from their families. That's a long time. And so credit to those guys that they pulled it off. It's good to see, because obviously you see what's going on with the other leagues. The NBA pulled it off presumably here in the next week or two, and the NHL first one done, first one in. So credit to those guys.
Yeah. What do you think, Christian? The Lightning won. They should have won. They were the best team, arguably, all year. I know other teams had better records, but the Lightning, totally choked away last season. They come back. They really answer the bell here. They rip through the playoffs. Yeah. I don't even think, did they ever even have to go to a game 6 versus anybody? I think they tear
I don't think
through.
so.
They were the best team. They win. Who's really in their way next year or the year after? I mean, that team, the way they're built,
Yeah,
they could be a problem for at least, for the NHL as a whole, who knows? But for at least the Eastern Conference, that team is going to be a problem for at least the next 2 to 3 years,
100%.
significantly so.
Yeah, I mean, in any series, they're probably going to have the top 2, 3 players. I mean, look at Point, you look at Hedman and Kucherov. All those guys are young, and they're sensational. I mean, they're all stars. Hedman won the no,
Conn Smythe.
Conn Smythe, yeah, and I mean, he's the best. He's one of the best players in the league, not just defenseman. He's one of the best players in the league. He's got size. He's got skill. That team is a problem. I mean, they choked it away bad last year. But then they made moves to kind of combat what they needed. So they combat with, they come back with Shattenkirk. They come back with guys like Pat Maroon to kind of get bigger, so they don't get pushed around as much. And I mean, look, their roster is insane, so they could easily go on for the next few years. In terms of who's in their way, I don't know. I mean, I think if you're the Bruins and you make some moves, you're up there. But again, you have some trouble with them. Washington is the one other team that I could see maybe getting by Tampa. But again, I think they have to make some moves. And this Tampa Bay team is, I mean, they're full of studs, up and down their roster. It's not just 1, 2, 3, and they get it done with their top 3 players. They have 4 lines that can do it, and they have 6 defensemen, maybe even 7 or 8 defensemen that can do it. So
Yeah. I think they're the best youngest team because they have youth.
yeah.
They have a mix, but can a team like the Islanders improve in key areas? Can the Capitals make some? The Capitals might have to blow it up though. I mean, like the age of that roster is suspect.
Yeah,
Same with the Penguins, right? You'd think like, oh, Pittsburgh, but yeah, they're aiming towards
yeah,
making
they're
changes.
falling. Yeah, they're
I'd say
falling.
I'd say the Bruins are probably the most uniquely placed team because they have a core of young guys that are really good, and they also have a core of older guys that some of them you can bring back maybe cheaply. Some guys you might ship out and flip and flop. Do they keep Tuukka Rask? Do they invest in a bigger defense core? Torrey Krug is likely gone. They're already shopping his rights, which means that they're going to give other teams the opportunity to sign him back with the way you can sign your own free agent spec. They're looking at trading his rights right now. So Torrey Krug, see ya. That's money that's available.
Rask also on the block. Yeah.
Do you trade David Krejci, or if anybody even wants that contract? Do you extend? What do you do with Rask? Chara says he wants to come back. What do you offer him? Then what do you use your free agent money to go get? Who's available? Who can you fit? They're uniquely situated. I think the Bruins, they're obviously clearly not rolling back the same team because they're just not going to be possible. Do they blow it up and say, we're going to take a big step back to maybe make a big step forward in 2 years? Or do they try and patch it and, make another run at it next year with you create maybe like that 2-year window where you say, all right, Krejci, Chara, Bergeron, Marchand, these guys are going to be our core again. We like McAvoy and Pasta and Carlo, and we supplement in some things and try and make a run at it with a, say, less than subpar goaltender. I think the Bruins are either going to be challenging the Lightning or they're going to not be in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, look, it's entirely possible, right? I mean, they need to make some moves. I think they understand that too. Obviously, with Sweeney and Neely, they understand that they need to make some moves now. Krejci's an interesting one. I feel like Krejci is in the sense that you can go into the season with him on the roster, and then maybe at the deadline, I feel like a team that's kind of vying for that top spot, maybe even not even trying to get into the playoffs, but more so top 3 in each respective conference. He's a guy that maybe you would move to the West on a team that needs maybe a centerman at the deadline and going into the playoffs. I think he's an intriguing guy for that. But it's entirely possible that starting this season they get rid of Krug. They do not have Tuca, and a guy like Krejci might be on the move as well. I think their keys are they need to get some of these young guys in the lineup more. Um, I think Cassidy is good, uh, but I think we need to kind of they need to get these guys uh, moving up more. So like Bjork and these guys need to get more play in the regular season, so they're ready for the postseason. They have a lot of young guys at the back end, but not a lot of top end. Coyle is obviously a guy that can move up if you get rid of someone like Krejci, and then you have like a couple of guys that are coming up from Providence and college, and obviously overseas as well. So they're in an interesting spot. I feel like you could take this core and maybe say, well, let's go one more year, but how many times are you going to do that? I mean, Chara is 42. He's going to be 43. I don't know how many years he has left, and if he's on the roster this year, I would like to see them. If he wants to keep the captaincy, that's perfectly fine with me. Obviously, he's been a good captain throughout all these years, but he needs to take a lesser role. It cannot be him and McAvoy night in, night out. I think he's hindering the play. So the guy that's been mentioned is Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who I'm intrigued by. I don't know how much that helps in terms of like getting you over the top, but I think he's a piece that could be interesting to help the top end of the defense. So McAvoy, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, that could be a pairing. But they need to make some moves and they need to get help on both D and offense. And so there's a lot, they have a lot of rumored guys that could be on the block. Rask, Carlo, Krejci. Obviously, Krug is probably done at this point. So they have a lot of room here to make moves. It just depends on what they do. You need to get some help, though, and get younger here fast because, I mean, you look at their roster through and through. It's Krejci, Bergeron, Chara. All these guys are older now. Marchand's still relatively young, so he's obviously good. Pasta's still young. So you got to kind of find a way to get these older guys still in the lineup, but also get the Coils and Bjork and Pasta and these guys more minutes because Krejci and Bergeron are not going to be there for the next 10 years. So you need to get help up front.
There's going to be a supplemental draft or an expansion draft because the Seattle Kraken are coming to town. Is there anybody on this team, aside from guys at the bottom of the roster, is there anybody significant on this team that you don't protect and you hope, please, Seattle, take this guy off our hands?
Rask is kind of an interesting one. I don't know how that would work, but he's a guy that, like, I think you need to get something for him, probably. It's tough, though. It's tough to say. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Maybe guys on D somewhere, maybe a Grzelcyk. I think they like Grzelcyk, but that's another interesting part. I just know they have to if they're going to obviously let someone go for that expansion, but they have to make moves to get more help. And they have to do it kind of. I have a feeling, like you said, they're gonna have a year here where they just absolutely suck because, they're not going to be like way down there, but they'll probably be 2-3 spots out of the playoffs at least, and not close. Because they have an older roster and they need to get help fast.
I saw a guy. Let me check. He's a guy I like. Former Islander. The Coyotes put Michael Grabner on buyout waivers. He's a guy I wanted the Bruins to get years ago when they were trading. I heard, hey, we're trading Johnny Boychuk to the Islanders. I was like, oh my God, are we going to get Michael Grabner? This is a guy that's got speed. He's got skill. I think he's a left shot. Like this would be perfect. No, we're just getting 2 second-round picks back.
Yeah.
Interested at all? I mean, I know there's reports that the Islanders are going to be interested in bringing him back as a depth signing. Is that a guy that you'd be interested in now that he's going to be on the market? If you're the Boston Bruins?
Yeah, because I mean, look, he has. I think it would be a favorable contract. Number one, and number two, he's got some of the things that you want in maybe a top, second line, third line kind of guy where he's going to help you no matter what. He's got a little bit of everything. So he's got some speed, a little bit of skill. He's got a little bit of size. I think he'd be a good fit on one of those lines, maybe with Coyle even. They also need to figure out what they're doing with DeBrusque because he's another guy that is an RFA. So it's going to be. They have a lot of holes here that could be coming off the roster. It's just a matter of what they do to get guys back on the roster. So he's an interesting one. I would consider it. I mean, honestly, I think you could get him for relatively cheap in terms of these guys up front. So
What do you do if you're the Dallas Stars? I mean, you catch lightning in a bottle with Hudobin, who played,
yeah.
played out of his mind in the playoffs. That team's got a lot of these guys that are starting to get long in the tooth. I mean,
Mhm.
you kind of feel for some of these guys. I think it was, was it Pavelski, right? He's
Yeah,
on the Sharks, goes through all of those, gut wrenching
tough one.
losses.
Yeah.
Has another one. And obviously, this one not as just like rip your heart out, but losing in the finals again. They have some guys that are getting older. Was this their shot? They're that team that we always talked about. They should have won more than they did. They always have like great regular season and then like lose in the first round as a 3 seed or something like that. Um, was this their chance? Are they going to come back better next year? Is it just going to be they need to start to just hit the reset button and honestly just kind of take the big step back? Or can the Stars use this as, hey, look, we made the finals. Teams don't tank, emotionally the way they do in say the NFL after losing in a championship setting. Can they be back, or was this it for the Stars?
No, they could be back. I think so. I mean, look, you have guys like Ben Sagan. They got some good young talent on the back end. And Hudobin is he's not like superstar like Vasilevsky, but he's also pretty good and he has some tread. So I think the Stars are in an okay place at this point. And obviously, with crowds and everything like that, who knows? I mean, the Blues are still going to be a good team out west, and they have some competition, but I think they're in a decent spot. I mean, look, everybody that played Tampa ran into a better team. That's just what it is, and that's going to be a problem going forward for the next few years, depending on if they choke out again. But I feel like it's like that old every dog has his day. I feel like those guys are going to punch through eventually. Here, it's just a matter of who gets them over the top. If they can make a couple moves for some veterans, and uh, they'll see what happens. But anybody that's going to run into Tampa is going to have trouble. I think that's just kind of the case at this point. So every team's got to try to get better. And even last year, Tampa was a wagon. So going forward, that's the team that you have to look at, especially in the East. But also, if you're coming out of the West, the East side with Washington and Tampa, those teams are going to be there every year.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Any notes here, Christian, on the Major League Baseball playoff? They had their wild card rounds conclude last week. So your settings for the divisional series: the Dodgers are number one seed in the National League, Padres, Braves, Marlins, uh, in the American League, Rays and Yankees, Athletics and Astros. Um, we've said before that baseball. There's a lot of things that they didn't do right about their season. Uh, Playoff baseball is generally compelling. Um, I don't think I liked the having so many baseball games. I think some people loved it. Right? It was like
Mhm.
March Madness for baseball to have all those games on in the wild card round. But if the quality of the games isn't good, does that even help? And your expectations for who should win and be in the championship series out of those matchups. Interesting too that you get the 6 seeds in each conference that do get through as well.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I'm not gonna lie. I like the tournament style of it, but and there's a lot of obsession with the bracket in the MLB. I kind of like it. I do like the 1 game play-in too, though. So I don't know how you implement all that, and maybe top teams get a first round bye. I mean, you look at it with the NHL, NBA, and these guys. It's like the 1 seed plays the 8 seed. That's just how it is. So. Um, I don't know. I kind of liked how the MLB did it, and it was a good experimentation. Maybe you cut down on the regular season somehow, like 20 games, and then have this kind of like round robin almost series style. I kind of like the bracket style. In terms of, I mean, look, I'm all in on the Padres. I like Tatis and Don, old friend Don Orsillo. I don't think he's announcing for the playoffs, but big fan of his. And also, yeah, I'm all in on Tatis. I think he's the guy. If you're the MLB, that unfortunately he's in San Diego, but uh, he's a guy that you can kind of build your whole brand around, right? He's the face of. He should be the face. He's a little bit of a putz, which kind of makes it more interesting because the MLB needs that. And in terms of who should win, I can't go against the Dodgers. I mean, I feel like they choke every year, but like every team is going to get through there eventually. I feel like, and this team just keeps building their roster with a bunch of freaking all stars, so they got to come through here eventually. Kershaw is dealing right now, so I wouldn't pick against them. In terms of the AL, I have no idea. I don't pay attention enough. The Red Sox blow. That's all I know. And so I would say, Dodgers, Padres. I'm all in on the Padres, but I think the Dodgers should probably win, right? If you can't pick the Dodgers now, I don't know.
It'll be tough to stomach for some people because of the risk that would be involved with this matchup. But I want to see Dodgers Astros. Give me that.
Yeah.
Give me that World Series. And I'd want the Dodgers to smoke the Astros. I'd want the Astros to be, just pummeled with pitches.
Yeah.
We didn't see it this year a lot, but I think if you get to that matchup, the Dodgers are the team that feel most victimized by the Astros and by the Red Sox. So the Astros, if they, obviously, I think the worst thing. I don't know. Well, would it be bad for baseball if the Astros turn around and win a World Series again, and they could say, "See, the cheating meant nothing," and they could thump their chest? Would that be good, or would it be better for the Astros to, totally, get their doors blown off, and maybe that'd be cathartic in a way for everyone involved.
I thought it would be more fitting for them to lose to like one of the worst postseason teams in history, the Twins. They've lost like 16 postseason games in a row. That would have been the most fitting. Obviously, it didn't happen. I just love it's already happening with the Astros. It's like Carlos Correa is like, see, we're still the best. No, you beat the Twins. They've lost like 86 games in a row. It's not like the end of the world here. So I hope the Astros get absolutely obliterated by whoever they play. But if they played the Dodgers, 100%, I probably would watch. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So, not much more needs to be said there. As the playoffs proceed, we'll in the matchups get a little more interesting and tighter. We'll have more to say, but that's the matchup I'm rooting for: Dodgers Astros. We're gonna circle on back to the NFL to do our picks. That's the beauty, Christian, of us doing this show live, is that the people listening here on a Sunday morning, we're live every Sunday at 11 a.m. Usually go for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, talking everything about the worldwide of sports. It's the 360 Sports Show, so we give you the full circle coverage, league-wide and local. We love your thoughts, questions, and comments as well, so you can be dropping those on the live stream or emailing us at the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com. We'll want to check the mailbag there really quick. But with nothing in the tank, we're going to go back and do our picks. And the beauty is, Christian, we get to make all these predictions and then immediately be proven right or wrong. Yeah. And so people who listen to this as a podcast will have the benefit of hearing us make hot takes on these games and knowing that we were right or wrong in the past. So on to week 4, Christian, you've had 2 really good weeks in a row, and you now have taken the lead. Actually, wait. Did you take Denver or did you take the Jets on Thursday night?
I took the Jets.
You took the Jets? Aha. So then we are actually tied.
Well, I will say, if Darnold doesn't get hurt, the Jets probably win that game.
So we are tied at 28 apiece. I had a big week 1. You edged me out in week 2, and then you had a big week 3. So on to week 4, and we're going to start. Actually, I guess now we have to put in here at the bottom New England at Kansas City.
By the way,
Uh,
supposedly that game is going ahead 7:05 tomorrow. Supposedly.
yes,
So
and Adam Schefter said that normally, like I said, so silly, right? The NFL doesn't test guys on game day, probably because they don't want to know. Um, but
it
they
will
will
be.
be tested tomorrow.
Mhm.
So everybody on the Patriots and Chiefs will be tested tomorrow morning before playing that evening. So let's start. Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Like I said, I'm picking Joe Burrow every single game this year. Easy one for me, Cincinnati.
Mm. Man, Cincinnati suck, but so does Jacksonville. So that's kind of the issue here. I'm going to say Cincinnati as well. This is going to be the first week.
All right. Cleveland at Dallas. This is the barometer for Cleveland, right? Like Dallas, I think is a good team, but they're not great, right? If Cleveland really wants to prove that they're for real, that they can be a contender, they win this game. They beat what might be like the slightly better team, or at least they're roster wise, these teams are even. Cleveland should win this game, but they won't. So I'm picking Dallas.
You know what? I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say Cleveland. Let's go.
Woo!
All in on Baker this week.
Alrighty.
They're probably going to get absolutely smoked, but it's okay.
The New Orleans Saints at the Trois Lions. Matt Patricia gets to keep his job for another week because
Do we know this game is going on? I know there was a case for New Orleans. I didn't hear anything else, but
I haven't heard any change. Let's see. Let's just check quickly.
We'll play it as if it's going, but I just know that there was a Saints. I assume they would have had some type of information.
Yeah, I mean they're warming up on the field.
Okay,
so it's going ahead. That could be the one. Again, this is your Titans Vikings from last week. We'll find out what happens after the fact. The Lions, Matt Patricia gets to keep his job for another week because they beat the Cardinals last week, which I thought was that was an upset for them. I don't think that doesn't matter. That's in Detroit. I'm picking New Orleans. They're the far superior team to that Lions team.
Oh, they are. I have not been impressed with New Orleans, I'll be honest. They're coming off 2 losses in a row at Detroit. Yeah, I'll pick New Orleans.
I was gonna say, go ahead, Christian. Give me an easy win.
I can't pull the trigger on that one.
Seattle at Miami. This is a no-brainer for me, but I'll let you pick first.
Yeah, Seattle. I'm all in on Russell.
Yes,
Wilson is he's the
MVP
best player on the planet right now.
Already, he's barring injury, lock it up. Russell Wilson MVP. Los Angeles Chargers at the Tom Brady Buccaneers.
I'm going to say Chargers. I think Tampa will probably win, and Gronk is starting to look better. Brady obviously is still playing pretty well, so they probably won't lose. But I'm going to take the Chargers. I like the Chargers.
I think I'm going to go Chargers too. I feel like 2-2 for the Bucs is just like right where they need to be. That's right where they should be given how they've played. So I'm going to go Chargers as well. Ravens at the Washington football team. Baltimore looked like a wounded puppy after playing Kansas City. They're talking about how that team's our kryptonite and blah, blah, blah. That's not good. It's one thing to say like, hey, that's a great team. Those guys, they played great, blah, blah, blah. When you just admit that team's your kryptonite, that just says that the Chiefs own real estate inside the Ravens' heads. Yeah. That being said, I think that team is angry. I think they're going to be wanting to vent, and no better team than the Washington football team.
Yeah.
So Baltimore in a landslide.
Yeah, they're going to smack the crap out of that team. What team is it again? The Washington football team? Are they going to find a name here in the next 2 years?
No.
Stupid.
Well, at least not this year.
Yeah,
at least not this year.
Whatever. I'm not going to pick them the rest of the year. I'm done with them.
All right. Arizona at Carolina. Two teams that I think, Carolina shows you some fight. I think they're going to have something there to build with in Carolina. I think Arizona's a step ahead of them. Being on the road, I don't know if that makes much of a difference. I think, I'm high on Arizona, so I'm still going to pick them.
Yeah, Carolina is going to be without McCaffrey for another couple weeks. They got a solid win against uh, I want to say San Diego every time, the Chargers. Uh, but yeah, they don't win this week, I don't think. So I'll take Arizona as well.
All right. Minnesota at Houston. This is like this is loser bowl,
This is
right?
the crap game of the week.
Both of these teams are 0-3, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Houston
So
probably should have won last week, but
yeah. So that's uh man.
I think Minnesota looked better last week. I still think both of these teams suck, and I just refuse to pick Bill O'Brien because I think he's an absolute pud. So I'm gonna say Minnesota.
I'm going Houston. I'm going Houston. I see. I the opposite.
Old
I'm just.
strategy
I'm just.
pad.
I'm just waiting. The Texans should be good. Like I just,
Yeah.
you know,
We say this every year. They should be good.
uh,
They just never are.
New York Giants at the Los Angeles Rams.
Rams. Yeah.
That's an easy one. Yeah.
Joe Judge is he doesn't have enough pep in him right now. He needs to get those guys going.
Indianapolis Colts at the Chicago Bears. Mitch Trubisky whip out. Nick Foles in.
Yeah, I'm taking Chicago. I like that team, especially with Foles. Like Trubisky had that comeback, but I still think he sucks. And Nick Foles brought him back last week. Foles can still play. The Eagles, you could still make the argument that they made a mistake letting him go, but I'll take the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long Nick Foles is going to, play well, but at least for this week, he's going to have a hot hand. So
He's got some stones though.
I'm going Chicago as well. The Buffalo Bills at the Las Vegas Raiders.
Bills. Yeah, I don't know though. Like the Raiders are weird. Like I feel like the Raiders last week could have smacked the Patriots right in the mouth in the first quarter if they didn't absolutely just peed down their own leg. I don't know. They could have been up like 14, at least like 13 nothing in that game, and they just can't get their head on right. So I'll take Buffalo. I think Buffalo is they're on the up and up here.
Well, here's the thing too. The Patriots turned the ball over. They took away what the Raiders like to do, which is to check the ball down and to get the ball to Darren Waller. And then offensively, the Patriots just ran the ball right down their throats. The Bills can do all of the above.
Yeah.
The Raiders are going to see the exact same game plan. And Derek Carr, I'm sorry, he's not going to be able to go to those other things. It's just not.
Yeah.
I had never seen double teams on check down routes ever in my life. And again, just Belichick just find something that just is going to make a guy uncomfortable, and that's and Derek Carr's going to see that. Can they figure something out? I don't know, but I'm going to pick the Bills because I think they have the better defense than the Patriots, as a whole unit. So they're going to probably throw that exact same game plan right in the Raiders' face. Philadelphia at San Francisco. Can we talk about how the Eagles just cannot get out of their own? One, I've never seen a team acquire more injuries consistently every single year along their offensive line. So they've got injury problems. They should have won that game against the Bengals, and they get into field goal range and then they go backwards.
I just want to know
that game ends in a tie. The Eagles cannot get out of their own way. Carson Wentz is just held together by scotch tape, I think, at this point, and it's only going to get worse for him, unfortunately. Yeah. The Niners are banged up. They're still they're far and away the better team. There's no confidence. I can't with any confidence pick the Eagles at all.
Yeah, I just want to know if Lane Johnson's having fun right now. That's what I want to know. Tying with the Bengals doesn't seem like fun. I will take San Francisco as well. The Eagles do not impress me one bit. I don't know what their problem is. Injuries obviously don't help, but at the same time, we see injuries, around the league every year, and teams come through. So I don't know. That seems weird to me. They've come back to earth since that Foles playoff run.
Yeah. Who do we have next? The Monday night game, Atlanta at Green Bay. This is Blowout City.
Green Bay in a runaway.
Atlanta. This will be. This should be. Dan Quinn's final game as the head coach of the Falcons.
Yeah, when they get run out of Lambeau by like 45, I think that'll be it. He might not even get on the flight. He might just move to Green Bay. Honestly.
Oh man, he'd have to quarantine in the airport for 2 weeks before he can go buy a house.
No problem though.
And then finally, the game which we expect to happen got moved from today to tomorrow because of COVID. The New England Patriots at the Kansas City Chiefs. This would have been two of this week's most fascinating games are in jeopardy, and one already is not happening. That was going to be Steelers-Titans. Really fascinating to see how that game would have played out with those teams. Same here. The Patriots, surprisingly 2-1. Cam Newton playing, at least putting himself in an MVP like type of conversation because of how he basically just become the Patriots offense.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're not going to have Cam. Honestly, the NFL should want this game to be postponed just so that you get the best out of it. Brian Hoyer at quarterback. Could there be some fluke game and the Patriots win? Maybe. That offense, just though, you would have needed to run the ball. Hoyer now is not going to give you what Cam gave you. You're going to have to throw the ball all over the place, and that's just not going to work. And the Chiefs are going to win going away. It's just the Chiefs would have to totally implode in this game on themselves. Losing this game would be more about the Chiefs than the Patriots, and I'm picking the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll say this: it would have been way more interesting with Newton. Obviously, that's the number one thing I wanted to see this week. And of course, he's the one guy that came back with a positive test somehow, but at least he's the only guy on the team, presumably. Hoyer, he kind of sucks. I'll be honest. I think they get absolutely rolled now, and they're probably going to lose by like 40 points. Yeah. I'm going to say Chiefs by 100. That's what I'll say. I think the Patriots will be able to run the ball a little bit. But at the end of the day, once Mahomes and that team gets going, which they will, that's kind of inevitable in these games, they're unstoppable for periods of time. It would have been intriguing more for the Patriots to kind of, with Cam, he has the ability to pass, but can run. He can control the clock a little bit better. It's just another dynamic. With Hoyer in there, he's your standard pocket passer. He's going to stand back there and they'll run the ball a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you're talking who's going to win the game between Mahomes, Hoyer, I'm not. I don't think you can pick Hoyer unless there's something else going on. So it's easily the Chiefs, which kind of sucks. It's just the whole week is ruined now. That would have been the matchup of the week is Newton against that Kansas City team, and can you control the clock enough and pass? Like, that's the thing. You have to take Mahomes off the field, but you can't just go down and kick field goals. You got to get in the end zone. You got to throw a little bit too. So can a fluke happen? Sure. But Kansas City, I think, wins this game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. So that'll do it for our picks. We did have some questions. Peter wanted to know, Brady made it up to a 90 passer rating. Is he going on a Tom roll? I think it helped to be playing the Broncos, who were banged up, and no crowd in Denver. I think he looked a little more on page with some guys, not all. I think again this week for Tom, that was 1 week. I think the Chargers are going to be a much stiffer test for them. Even though they're at home. We'll learn more today. I expect the Buccaneers to be a team that probably is like 4-6, 3-3, like at the midpoint of the season, and not or 6-4. And right around that 500-ish range, given their schedule and just given what we know about them needing to work through things. But they could definitely make a deep run, in the long run after that. But we'll learn a lot today about where the Buccaneers are at after playing the Chargers. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, Christian.
Yeah, I just think I think we all know Tom can still play, right? I don't think anybody's saying that. Obviously, he can still play. I hope he does well down there. Obviously, is he going to get going here? Probably. I mean, it's just inevitable that they ramp up eventually, right? I think the only thing that gets in the way of that team is Arians kind of doing what he wants to do, as opposed to kind of letting Tom not take over per se, but do some more things that he wants to do and get in full sync with those guys. But at the end of the day, that Tampa Bay team, I feel like, should be in the conference title game. I don't know, like they should be up there and competing for a Super Bowl this year, just with their roster alone. And their defense has been relatively good, I think,
Yeah.
which was the worry. So Tom is going to be fine. He can play at a high level. We know that, and it's just a matter of ramping up here over the next 5-6 weeks maybe.
Yeah. Finally, we had a question from Corrine. She wanted to know, hi guys, are you going to be discussing the French Open? I haven't had a chance to watch. I have been following some. I know there's been a lot of upsets, especially on the women's side. Iga Swiatek, again, I think she's from Poland, had another upset yesterday. So the women's side has been really interesting to watch. Rafa Nadal has looked like Rafa Nadal, and he's on a complete tear once again, kind of just cruising at this point. Those are kind of the big headlines. I haven't had a chance. Early on, it's on at weird times. There's so much to watch. There's been so much with all these bubbles and things. Usually you get, there's a flow of like when the Masters happens. Then you have like the tennis opens, and you can dedicate time to just those. It's all happening at once. Baseball, hockey, basketball, football, and tennis, and golf, and it's all the major events are all happening all at once. So it's tough to watch all of it. But I'd say the upsets have been fascinating with the French Open, and then guys like Nadal who look like they're still just completely obliterating the field right now.
Yeah, I mean, so for me anyway, like I follow tennis, follow golf, follow all those things. So once we get into more like fourth quarters, which is quarters are coming up next. So obviously one upset was Zverev, and I think Yannick Sinner, I think, beat him. So he's going to play Nadal in the quarters, which is kind of intriguing. But I mean, look, once you get to in tennis anyway, right now it's like Dominic Thiem, Djokovic, Nadal, those guys are going to be in the quarters. So once I hit the quarters, I'll kind of take off and running there with it. But overall, I think number one, it's good that it's happening, right? I mean, that's a positive thing, and I will follow Nadal always. So I think we'll pick it up here in the next few weeks. I mean, it is weird times because it's the French Open, but there have been times where I'm up till 4 a.m. watching the Aussie Open and things like that. So, as the quarters and semis, and that's when it really picks up, because at least on the men's side, it's mainly those those top 5, top 8, top 10 guys that are up there.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our program here today. Thank you for joining and listening. Once again, we are live every Sunday at 11 a.m. here on the 360 Sports Show. You can catch us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. And if you don't catch us live, you can go watch the archived versions of the show on all of those platforms. Subscribe so that you get reminders when we go live. And if you want to, you can download the audio version of the show as the 360 Sports Show podcast. That's what that was our bread and butter, but having to go virtual here because of the coronavirus, you get to see our wonderful visages here broadcast throughout the internet. But the podcast is still up there every single week, so you can go and listen. We had a great show today. Thank you for everybody for listening, and we will talk to you guys again next week. Stay safe, everyone.
See you later, everybody.